Well, hey there, Connexus Church podcast listeners. Thanks for tuning in for a special bonus episode of our podcast. It's Carey Nieuwhof here, and we are in the middle of a series, actually on to part 2 of a series called On the Neck of Kings. And if you've been listening to the messages, you know it's all about conquering your fear. And in part 2 of On the Neck of Kings, I talked about how to talk to your soul. That's an ancient practice that comes right out of the Psalms, like straight from the Hebrew Scriptures, and very biblical idea, and I explain that in part 2 of On the Neck of Kings. So if you haven't listened to that, it's a good idea to head on over and listen to that, and maybe even do the small group questions, because there's some very practical application. But in one of the other things I do a leadership podcast, and I had the opportunity to interview best-selling author John Gordon. And John told a very interesting story about how when he was 29, his wife just came to him one day and said, "Hey, I love you, but you are so negative. I just can't stand this anymore." And it really shocked him, and he actually changed his life. He actually tried to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to become a more positive person? And in the process of having that conversation with me, he outlined how he did it, which reminds me an awful lot of how to talk to your soul. So I think you're going to love this interview no matter what. John's a brilliant thinker and leader. He works with top sports organizations, lots of NFL teams, Major League Baseball teams. He also works with Fortune 500 companies and even clients as diverse as West Point Academy, the military academy. And he's written many books, including some New York Times bestsellers, including The Energy Bus. So I think you're going to find this a fascinating conversation. And if you are trying to talk to your soul, the first 15, 20 minutes, I think might be helpful. So that's why we're bringing you this as a bonus podcast for the On the Neck of Kings sermon series at Connexus Church. Here you go. John, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you.
Carey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you work with a lot of great organizations, 16 books, and you consult with the LA Dodgers, Atlanta Falcons, Dell, like in the tech world, Southwest Airlines, a lot of banks, Bear, and even the West Point Academy. Like you pretty much hit the whole leadership spectrum. Tell everybody what you do, and I would love for you to share how you got into doing what you're doing.
Well, it's been a journey. My wife and I were fighting a number of years ago, and I was miserable, negative, unhappy with my life. And she came up to me and she said, I love you, but I'm not going to spend my life with someone who makes me so miserable. I was 29 years old at the time, 2 small children, fearful and stressed. And I really didn't have any faith. So I remember praying, really for one of the first times, like praying and saying, God, like, why am I here? I know I'm here for a reason. What is my purpose? And writing and speaking came to me. I said, okay, what am I going to write and speak about? I didn't know, but I knew that that's what I was supposed to do. I wanted to be more positive, so I started to research ways that I could be more positive on my own journey. And it was through the emerging field of positive psychology. So I found all these great tips on being positive. I found that you can't be stressed and thankful at the same time. So I started taking these walks of gratitude every day. I call it a thank you walk. And every day I would be walking and saying what I was thankful for. And then I started to pray on these walks. I wasn't a Christian, but I just started to pray. I actually grew up Jewish. My mom was Jewish and my biological father was Jewish. My stepfather, who was my dad who raised me, he was Catholic, Italian. So we never went to church, never went to temple. There was no religion in my life, but I just started to pray. And then my good friend Daniel Decker, who we both know, gave me these sermons from Erwin McManus. And one was called Why I Follow Jesus. And I heard that sermon. It really started to speak to me. I heard a sermon from Rob Bell called Covered in Dust about Jesus as a Jewish rabbi. And that really spoke to me, and about why his followers would follow him, the disciples, and that story. And that just really spoke to me. And Erwin's words just really brought Jesus to life for me. And so from there, I went on this spiritual journey, and that coincided with me knowing that I was supposed to write and speak. And next thing you knew, I wrote a book called The Energy Bus. And that book came out, and it wasn't a bestseller right away. It was rejected by over 30 publishers. But really? that book started to get into the hands of different leaders, different sports teams, coaches, school principals. They started to read that book. And then I started getting invited to speak to these various organizations. And from there, that really began my leadership journey. I wasn't a consultant. I was just someone who was going out speaking. And then when I was there, I was interacting with the leaders and the people from these companies. And I just started to learn a lot. So it was like on-the-job training of leadership, not theory leadership, but practical leadership about what works. And so for the past now 11 years since the Energy Bus has been out, that's what I've been doing, speaking on leadership, working with teams, and doing this work. And I realized that was my ultimate calling. This is why God had me here, to teach, learn, and share about leadership and building strong teams.
Any idea why you were so negative in your 20s? I mean, as we all have that voice in our head, right? Like, I have my days and my bad days. My wife and I have had conversations, but like, what led you to the point at 29 where your wife's like, we're not doing this?
2 small children. And I was just so fearful about my life and about my future. And I had no faith about the future. I was just so scared that my life was going to turn out horrible. And so I think with the fear and the pressure of having to provide for 2 small children, I was a young dad, having this wife that I needed to support, I couldn't handle it. I wasn't mature. So I believe fear and stress. And I was losing the battle of my mind. But again, my worst moment, that was one of my worst moments, led to my best moment of the work I get to do now.
So you're Googling, how do I become a more positive person? Like, that's how the journey started, John?
I didn't think Google was around at that point.
11 years ago, I'm trying to think. It would have been a pretty basic search engine.
Well, actually,
so what?
Yeah, it was a few years even before 11 years ago. I think this conversation was around because I'm 47 now. So
okay,
20 years ago.
20 years ago. Okay. So you started what? Reading books, going to seminars. What was your path
researching, again, positive psychology. There were books on positive psychology, Martin Seligman, and on the internet, the old-fashioned internet, there was different research and articles like that. And so I started to see all this cool research, for instance, focusing on what people were doing right, and they'll do more things right, and also the ratio of positive interactions versus negative interactions. So I started to find this research, and then I started to apply it. Like the coach in me takes this information and figures out how to apply it. That's even what I do now. I take these principles and say, okay, how can we apply it so that leaders and teams could use it and work with it? So from there, it just began this journey of finding what works in terms of positivity. And I started a newsletter, a weekly positive tip of the week. And every week I would send these positive tips out. Sometimes it was inspiration. Sometimes it was research. I mean, now everyone has a blog. Everyone's sharing information on social media. But back then, this was 2002, I started a weekly positive tip. And it started with an email. I would just email the people on my email list. My mother, my brother, my best friend from college. They were getting these tips whether they liked it or not.
It's like an old-fashioned all-send. Remember those from 100 years ago? Yeah. You BCC everybody or whatever.
Yeah, I did. I would BCC them all and just send it out. But people started to share it. And people started, asked to be added to the list. And from there, it grew and grew and grew. And that led to the opportunity to try to publish these books.
So you talk about your spiritual quest, which is amazing, which ended up on you becoming a Christian and following Jesus. You talked about your daily walks and gratitude tips. What are some other, because you live in the world of the practical, what are some, because there's a lot of people who struggle with negativity listening to this podcast. What are some, like 2 or 3, and I know, 16 books later, this is complicated, we're not going to have time to touch it all. 2 or 3 things that you try this, you will see a difference.
The best advice I ever heard is from Dr. James Gills, the only person on the planet to complete 6 double Ironman triathlons. Wow. That means you do an Ironman, 24 hours later you do another one. And the last time he did it, he was 59 years old. So he was asked how he did it. He said, I've learned to talk to myself instead of listen to myself. He said, if I listen to myself, I hear all the negative, all the fear, and all the doubt. But if I talk to myself, I can feed myself with the words and the encouragement that I need to keep on moving forward. He would memorize and recite scripture, and that's what fueled him. And so for me, I do a lot of talking to myself. I realize the negative voices are lies. I don't believe the lies. Instead, I do what Jesus did in the wilderness. I speak truth to the lies. I actually teach this to professional athletes, to leaders, everyone really gets it, which is really cool. I mean, I will share these tips in a corporate environment, in a business setting. Now, I won't go the Jesus route, but I'll talk about the lies and fear and negativity. And I ask them, does negativity come from you? And they said, yeah. I go, really? Who would ever choose to have a negative thought? Would you ever choose a negative thought? No one would ever choose one. So it's not coming from you. It's coming from the enemy. It's coming from a spiritual place. It's a spiritual battle. And once you understand that, you can armor yourself with the truth, with these positive words that help you overcome the lies that come in all the time. So for me, that's really the biggest battle that I've won over the years, through prayer, through trust in God, through belief, where on a daily basis, I'm taking these walks of gratitude and prayer. I walk, I surrender, I let go of ego and fear. I say, God, I trust in your plan for my life. I say, God, use me for your purpose. Guide me towards my purpose. Have me help you who you want me to help. Have me serve who you want me to serve. I also repent on these walks. It's like the number one thing that I've done in the course of my life over the past, 12 years now, on this daily walk that has really transformed my life.
I'm curious, why walking? What is it about walking?
I think that's the time that I just get most silent. It's a time that God can reach me. I'm not saying everyone should go out and go on a walk, right? For some people, it's a bike ride. For others, it's when they're in the shower. For me, it's during these walks that I'm able to just really connect and then to receive. And every idea I've had, all these books that I've written, has come on these walks. So I'll be walking, and then I'll get this idea that just comes to me on the walk.
Isn't that interesting? Are they 20-minute walks, half-hour walks, hour walks?
They're all depending on the time and what's happening. Okay, but sometimes they're 10-minute walks, sometimes 20, usually an hour. Love to walk for about an hour. And you come back, and you've created a fertile mind and a spirit that is ready for great things to happen. Now, I also at night before I go to bed, my wife and I pray before bed. We were just on TV sharing these tips on TV about the fact that we pray every night before bed, and that's one of the key things that have allowed us to stay connected together. So that's been really important. So that's another ritual we do. Try to eat right, exercise every day, things like that to, really stay healthy on this journey.
Isn't that interesting, that you talk to yourself as a preacher? I'm preaching on Psalm 42 in a couple of weeks. That's exactly it. I've called the week Talk to Your Soul. And it's actually a biblical concept where, why are you so downcast, my soul? Why, put your hope in God? Like, you basically talk yourself out of your despondency. And that's exactly what you're talking about, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And I love when Jesus was in the wilderness and the devil was lying to him. What did he do each time? He said, "It is written. It is written. It is written." And I learned from that. I was like, that's it. He spoke truth to the lie. He was giving the playbook on how to deal with the enemy. Now, when I'm speaking to younger people, I'll even talk about this in a secular setting. I'll say, hey, what is Star Wars about? What's it a battle between? And they'll say, good and evil. What's Harry Potter about? Good and evil. What's Superman about? Good and evil. What's Wonder Woman about? Good and evil. It's the narrative in the universe. It's our narrative that we face evil with good. And so it's the battle between good and evil. And that is our journey. It's what Jesus talks about. And it's our path as human beings. I'm taking on the evil with good, with a trust in God. And once you understand that that's the battle, now you can win the battle. And you can't win the battle if you just try to come up with mental strategies. Like, oh, I have this mental strategy. Because it's more than a mental strategy. It's understanding the truth that allows you to win the battle.
Oh, man, I have so many questions. So one of the things that I think a lot of us would assume, because, again, you're working with top corporations, top athletes. I mean, you're working with the cream of the crop. It's your day job. A lot of us would think, well, these guys don't have those struggles. Like, they're not battling at this level. What are you finding working with these guys? I
find that whether it's a CEO, a head coach of an NFL team, or a superstar player, we're all dealing with these battles because we're all human. And so often, the more success you have, the more fear you have, because the farther you have to fall. You're scared of losing what you have, and you don't want to lose it. And so the enemy comes in even more and attacks you in the place of your identity. And when your identity is your success, when your identity is your money or your power or your position, you will be attacked even more. And so I see it as my role to help these people through these challenges. But again, I'll talk about it when I speak to them in terms of positive leadership, right? How do we lead from a positive way? And then as we talk about positive leadership and building strong, positive teams, from there on the individual level, when we have this relationship and you find out different people are struggling with different things, that's when you can talk about that on a personal level.
Right, and get into what motivates your worldview and your faith and your belief system.
Exactly.
What are some common characteristics of high-performing individuals or high-performing teams?
Well, from a team standpoint, they all have a shared vision and a greater purpose. They know where they're going, and they know why they're going there. They stay positive through the challenges. I mean, every team will face challenges. And stay positive may sound cliche, but it's really about staying positive through all the adversity, all the obstacles. I was just with the Rams during their training camp, and I said to them, you guys are all positive now because you're undefeated. You haven't lost a game yet. It's the teams that stay positive throughout the season that accomplish great things, because right now we're positive. But once we have our first loss, how do we respond? So as a leader and as a team, you have to work through those struggles, stay positive through them, continue to move forward. And that's a key attribute for teams. They have this belief and optimism where they just don't let it go. And then they're really connected. You have to be a connected team if you want to be a committed team. Everybody wants commitment on their team, but you will never have commitment without connection. And I have found that these teams get connected. They have what's called emotional safety, psychological safety, where they have trust, where they build a bond, where they feel free to fail, be vulnerable with each other. And from there, this bond, this trust, this relationship is what really drives true and lasting success. Again, you see the teams that give up halfway through the season because they're not connected and not committed. You see the teams that don't have team grit. Everyone talks about grit. You'll never have team grit without this connection and commitment. And then great teams also have the difficult conversations. They move from what I call like to love. I wrote this in The Power of a Positive Team, right? From like to love. Steve Scheinbaum taught me this principle because he realized that in all his work with teams, there's so much like today. Everyone wants to be liked because all the likes in social media, right? No one wants to rock the boat. But they stay surface level as a result of that. And then they never move to greater intimacy. They never move to love because they don't have the difficult conversations. You have to have the difficult conversations. Pete Carroll has Tell the Truth Mondays after their Sunday football games. Seattle Seahawks. Tell the Truth Mondays, right? Okay, every Monday we get together and we're going to tell the truth. This is what you did wrong. These are the mistakes you made. Here's what we need to do better. But no one gets defensive because they know it's part of their culture. It's about accepting feedback. It's not demeaning. It's demanding, but not demeaning. And in that process, everyone gets better. So great leaders and teams are demanding, just not demeaning. And they're all moving towards a standard of excellence where they really want to improve every day. They're always striving to get better. They have what I call positive discontent, where when they win, they say, okay, we won, but what can we do better? Just like in your church. All right, we had a great service. Service was awesome, but what can we do better? We're going to celebrate it, but how can we improve? Or this is really bad service. We lost the game. It was a bad service. Okay, what did we do wrong? How can we get better? So regardless of whether it's bad or good, they're always striving to get better in the process.
So that's interesting. So being positive doesn't mean you just, gloss over mistakes or problems. But I love how you say you're demanding but not demeaning. Because I think we've all been in that situation where it's been demeaning, not just demanding.
When people see my book, The Power of Positive Leadership and Positive Team, they think, okay, this is Pollyanna positive. And I love when I get to share, no, this is not Pollyanna. This is about confronting negativity. It's about dealing with negativity. It's about addressing the challenges. And it's about pursuing greatness together. We're not just here to have fun together. We're here to pursue greatness together. Because we believe the best is yet to come, we give our best to each other. We give our best each day to create the best outcome. So this is about pursuing excellence. And it's about love and accountability. That's the key to great leadership today. It's the key to great teams. 2 words, love and accountability. You have to have both. If you have a lot of love, but no accountability, you're going to be a great family. You're going to love each other, but you're not going to be very accountable, and you're not going to be moving towards greatness. If you have a lot of accountability, which is the way a lot of us lead, but not enough love, well, then you're always pushing, you're grinding, you're challenging, but there's not enough love to invest in that relationship. And so what do? You get what Andy Stanley said, rules without relationship lead to rebellion, right? So you have to have the 2 in combination together.
Okay, so let's say an NFL team that's 0-10 calls you in. All right, John, we're 0-10. We haven't won all season. All right, our fans, there's 3 people left in the stands. The owner's furious. What you walk into that situation, how do you coach that organization?
Well, first and foremost, not every team I work with wins, and I share that I spoke to the Cleveland Browns 2 years ago, so I know that's not me, right? It's never the book. And I went to them halfway through the season, so it's a very similar situation of what you're talking about. I never like to go in at that point. I really believe the key is during training camp, because you have to set the culture at that point. You set the expectations, and these are the foundational principles that allow you to have a great season. So we like to do it early on, and then I found that the coaches and the leaders, they ingrain these principles and they live those principles. Then you see results. So it's always the leader, never the talk, never the book. It's always. But if I go in and they're 0-10, we're talking about getting better. We're talking about improvement. We're talking about staying positive for ourselves and each other. We're talking about being positively contagious right now, that every day you show up, you could be a germ or a big dose of vitamin C. What kind of energy are you bringing to each other and to your team? And it's believing the best is yet to come. And the idea is, hey, let's give our best every day right now, because what you do right now will not only determine how you finish the season, but it will also determine how you start next season. It will determine your career and how you move forward, because if you commit to that right now, everything you do from here on out will never be about the circumstance. It will always be about being the best that you can be.
No, that's good counsel. So I'm thinking about pastors who feel like they're the Cleveland Browns. It's like, man, you should see this team. Or, business leaders who are like, well, I have a startup. It's almost a non-start at this point. When you're talking with the head coach, when you're talking with the quarterback, and they come to you and they're saying, John, I'm just discouraged. I want to throw in the towel. What do you say to them?
Well, it's what I wrote in The Power of a Positive Team. The fact that discouragement is why we so often give up. Mm-hmm. That's why staying positive is so important. We get discouraged, we give up, we stop trying. And so we don't give up because of the challenge. We give up because we get discouraged. And if you can just stay positive and move forward one step at a time and strive to get better every day, then you move yourself and you move forward in a positive direction, creating a greater outcome in the future. So that's why encouragement is so important. That's why we need more encouragement in this world. That's why I do what I do. My job is really just to encourage. I mean, I saw Dabo Swinney. I work with Clemson football, for the past 7 years now. And I've seen this coach, this leader, just believe, just stay encouraged. No matter what happened, no matter what loss they had, he stayed encouraged, stayed positive, and kept on instilling that belief in others. Leadership is a transfer of belief. And so if you as the leader are not believing what's possible, if you're not positive, your team will never be positive. You have to realize that you're transferring your belief every day to your team. That's why you must be a positive leader today. Through all the challenges, you must lead your team in a positive direction. And I've seen the great leaders that do that. That's why I know this is not Pollyanna. Alan Mulally, Turnaround Ford, took over as CEO in 2006. They were losing $14 billion. $14 billion.
With a B.
Talk about discouraged, but he saw it as an opportunity. He was excited about it. He had them profitable in a few short years.
Yeah, during the biggest recession since the Great Depression.
Well, imagine that. So 2006, he takes over. They restructure the company. They start building great cars. They're reorganizing everything, doing everything right. And 2008 hits. And all of a sudden, no one's buying cars. Yeah. Man, everyone got discouraged but him. He said, we have a plan. Everyone must embrace the plan, relentlessly work towards the plan. And so he just kept everyone focused on the plan, continued to work on it, stayed positive, defined his leadership style as positive leadership, and transformed the company. One of the greatest leadership feats in history. So if that pastor of a small church, if they're struggling, things not going well, if that small startup business person, it's not going well, you have to look at your vision and say, okay, is this our vision? Is this really where we want to go? Do we still believe it's viable? Because that's another question, right? Do we have a bad model? Is the business just not right? Is it not going to succeed no matter what we do? Like even God can't make this work, right?
Right.
Like, is there like Cleveland Browns? Like, I feel like no one can help the Browns those last couple of years that I was there, right? And so I actually root for that team, by the way. But if it just is so bad, you have to evaluate that. But if you truly believe this is what we want to build, this is what we want to create, and you know what? We believe it's possible, then you continue to work for it and stay encouraged through the process of it.
You write and talk about energy vampires. Can you tell us about that? What's an energy vampire? How do we know if we see one or if we are one?
Well, every team will have energy vampires. Even Jesus had an energy vampire on his team named Judas, right? So everyone will have an energy vampire. That's the person who sucks the life right out of their team. They're focused on themselves. They don't care about their team. They're just really, really negative, and they bring the team down. And so as a leader, one of the biggest mistakes we make is that we do not focus on dealing with the negativity. We do not confront the negativity. We allow it to exist and persist. And then the negativity grows and it winds up sabotaging the organization. So we have to address it, but we do so in a positive way. The biggest problem, well, one of the biggest problems also is that leaders get negative about negativity. And so they go to their teams and they're like, hey, you got to be positive. And they're all negative. Or they say this from the energy bus, you're either on my bus or off my bus. You decide. And that's not the intention. You have to love tough, not tough love. Love tough is the key. Love must come first. If your team knows that you love them, then you earn the right to challenge them, but love must come first. And so a lot of people, unfortunately, that have taken my book, The Energy Bus, and what they're doing now is they're using it as a way to control people and to say you're either positive or not, or you're getting off my bus, or you're an energy vampire, need to change. And that was never the intention. The intention is you must address the negativity. If someone is an energy vampire, you address them in a positive way. You try to help them become a part of their culture. You try to transform them with love, with empathy and coaching and mentoring and guidance. But if that person then at that point is really negative, if they're not willing to change, if they are sabotaging the team, and there are those people, then you may have to let that person off the bus. And you have to do so they don't hurt the rest of the team. But first, you must lead with love.
So, yeah, that's an interesting perspective because I think, you think of a board of directors, church world, corporate world, you have that one negative voice. I'm not negative. I'm a realist, right? So that has to be confronted. Yes.
And I love when people say I'm a realist, right? I'm just being a realist. Meanwhile, when Steve Jobs would say to his team, hey, we're going to do this software in this amount of time, and they'd say, there's no way it's going to happen. They said, hey, he had this amazing ability to distort their reality. Yeah. He distorted their reality. His reality distortion field, they called it, from pessimism or realism, I'm just being a realist, to optimism. And time again, they accomplished the very thing that they thought was possible. Now, you want to have some of those people on the team that, again, try to bring some objectivity to it in a sense. They want to bring maybe even some conflict because those people might get you to think about things you normally wouldn't think about. But once you have those discussions, then they must join the team and get on the bus and believe about what's possible when you have those discussions. If that person just wants to be negative for negative sake, they're an energy vampire. If they're trying to make the team better, and that's their intention, and they do so, and they make you think about things that you normally wouldn't think about, that's actually an attribute to the team. So you need that as part of your team. Notice we're talking about, some conflict. You have to have some conflict, as our friend Patrick Lencioni talks. I mean, you have to have conflict on a team. I call it positive conflict. It's conflict that makes you better and stronger. So you have to have these difficult conversations that make you better. You can't ignore it. And so if you have it, and it makes the team better, then you can grow from it. So the ratio you want is like 5-to-1 or greater, positive to negative interactions, 3-to-1 or greater. 7-to-1 or greater is awesome. But if you get to 13-to-1, 13 positive to 1 negative, the team starts to fall apart because no one's dealing with the real issues. Then we are poly. We are poly.
Is that an aggregate? Like, so you have an hour meeting or whatever, and you want a 3-to-1, 5-to-1, 7-to-1 positive over negative? Or is that like, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's most in terms of over the course of a relationship, over the course time of being together and so forth. Maybe not in one meeting. In one meeting, you might have more negativity that meeting, but over the course of a relationship, John Gottman's research shows in marriage is the ratio is 5 positive to 1 negative. As the ratio approaches 1-to-1, 1 negative to 1 positive interaction, the marriage is more likely to head to divorce.
Fascinating. So when it comes to that board member or that team member, staff member, key volunteer, whatever it happens to be, is that a good indicator? Like they are 3 times positive to 1 time negative? Because I mean, there is, we've all been around tables where is that one guy, nothing positive ever comes out of his or her mouth. And is that always, and you try to build them up, but they're just, this is just the way I am. I call it the way I see it. Those are the energy vampires. Or how do you know that this person isn't just a correctable good person or a coachable person, or you got to get off the bus?
That's through leadership. That's there's no scientific formula. That's the magic of great leaders that can actually embrace those people, coach those people, talk to that person one-on-one and get more out of the person than others would or will. And so for someone like that, I would love to start a meeting with that person and say, okay, hey, what are we doing right? What's going right now? Like you have to come up with a couple of things we're doing right because there are good things we're doing. And so what are we doing right? And then what are you excited about in the future? What are you optimistic about? If that person especially is in a church, right? They better be optimistic about the future.
We have the gospel. You better find something positive.
And there are too many people that aren't. There are too many Christians that you would never know they're Christian because they're not very optimistic or faithful or hopeful. So again, if you're making the team better, getting us to think about things we normally wouldn't think about, but get that person to start sharing some positive interactions, some positive, hopeful things about the future and positive things they see. So we can start getting that person to think a little bit differently on the team. And then we talk to that person and say, look, we have to have more positive interactions. We're better when we're positive. And when my son, for instance, says, Dad, I'm just being me, because he's got the I'm just being me thing, you said you should be authentic. Yeah, you should be authentic, but you should be the best version of you, right? This is not like, I'm just being me, but I'm a jerk. Like, that's just who I am. No, you don't have to be that. You can be the best, most positive version of you.
One of the things that I've found helpful in leadership, and you've hinted at it, is just what I call alignment. In other words, if this person actually wants the church to grow, if they want the church to thrive, and they're like, I'm not sure this is the best strategy. That's totally different than the person who's like, yeah, I'm just thinking about me and all the negative thoughts in my head. That's good to develop a filter.
Yeah, the energy vampire is often bringing their own personal wounds and their own struggles and their own issues, and they're bringing it to everyone else. Again, as Christians, we have to have empathy for those people. We have to want to help those people and guide those people. But it doesn't mean that person necessarily should be part of your team. Andy Stanley also said, you want to have a ministry, not hire a ministry. And so again, you want to make sure that people on your team are contributing to the team in a positive way, because one person can't make a team, but one person can break a team. And so when I have a coach, for instance, that has someone who's really struggling as a young player, they got issues that they grew up with, pain that they've endured, issues that they have. Well, I totally tell the coach, like, if that person's doing anything to sabotage the team and really hurt the team, maybe you have to let that person off. You have to do everything you can. But then don't let that person out of your life. Continue to mentor that person. Keep that person close. Call them up. Encourage them. They may not be on your court or your field, but they can still be on your team where you love them and care about them. And again, that's a different approach than just saying, you know what, you're an energy vampire, that's it. We don't want to exclude people. We don't want to get rid of people. But again, when you're here to do something, when you have a mission, when you have a purpose, when you're moving towards that, and someone really is sabotaging it. Again, not one time, okay? A lack of, a lack of belief one time, or a negative thought one time, or a fight. Teams are going to fight. But if that person over and over again is really sucking the energy out of the team and hurting the culture, I work with a lot of school districts, and you get a couple of those teachers and they're sabotaging the culture, and they're now affecting the entire culture to make a difference in these kids' lives. Well, then that person needs to either get on the bus or get off the bus, because you know what? We're here to make a difference in kids' lives. And if you're going to sabotage that and you're focused on you instead of them, because it's all about you and not the kids, okay, this person may need to get off the bus if they're not willing to change. My whole litmus test, if you're willing to change and be coached and we can work together and get better, all right, let's do it. But if you're not willing to change, if you just continue to want to be negative, you think it's everyone else but you, and that's your issue, well, then you might be an energy vampire. But again, it's no perfect science. There's no perfect formula. The leader's job is to figure out who needs to stay and who needs to may need to go.
Well, last question for you. You have or encourage what I understand to be a no complaining rule. Can you talk about that? We've talked a lot about negativity, but where does that go and what does that look like, the no complaining rule?
Why have we talked so much about negativity?
I don't know. Probably because we're talking to church leaders. It's funny because the questions didn't go there, but this interview went there. It's fascinating.
No, I love it. Rich Wilkerson. Rich Wilkerson's a good friend. And Rich Wilkerson, years ago, before the book really even took off, he read The Energy Bus and the No Complaining Rule with his church down at Trinity in Miami. And they implemented the No Complaining Rule. And it transformed their culture. And as a new Christian, I had no idea that churches were negative. Like I was blown away because I really had this myth and this idea like, they got to be like amazing, positive places. And there's just everyone's optimistic and gets along and hopeful and sings songs. And that's the way it is behind the scenes. I really had that childlike belief that that's the way it was. And so I'll never forget talking to him and going, oh, wow, I had no idea what life is. And so
you're making me laugh. I ask these questions with the leader in mind, and I talk to so many discouraged church leaders, so many discouraged business leaders, and it's just hard day in and day out. That's why I'm grateful for you, John, and grateful for what you do, because I think you're changing the conversation, you're changing the culture. But thank you. Thanks for that audible you just called.
I appreciate that. But and since that time, though, so a lot have implemented the no complaining rule. It's really simple. It's a great positive way to deal with negativity. You implement a no complaining rule that says you're not allowed to complain unless you come with a solution. So we want to hear your complaints. Bring your complaints, but also bring your solutions. And if you do that, what happens now is the complaints are a catalyst for new ideas, for improvement, for a better process of how we can do things. If you just allow people to complain and that venting, that only leads to toxic energy, toxic attitude, toxic behaviors, and then you sabotage your church, your team, your organization, your sports team. So I've had teams do no complaining training camp. The Atlanta Falcons did that for years. No complaining training camp. We're not allowed to complain during training camp. See, because energy vampires are overt. You can see who they are, you know who they are, and you can deal with them. It's that subtle negativity of complaining that slowly will sabotage a team and organization if you allow it to exist. So you implement this rule, and it was really invented by PPR, which is a nurse staffing company. Mm-hmm. The CEO is a friend of mine, and he told me how he implemented this rule. One of the best places to work every year in a commoditized market, staffing, they're outperforming their competition 10 times the growth. And they have such a great culture because they tell people when they come on board, hey, we have a no complaining rule. If you're a complainer, this is not the right place for you. Hey, we want your solutions. We empower everybody, and that's the key. If you're going to implement this rule, you have to be a group of leaders, and you have to have leadership that is willing to listen to the complaints. You can't say and have this rule if you don't allow people to share, because then you're just stifling people. And they complain why? People complain because they feel powerless or because it's a habit. And when you have both of those issues, it's how you feel powerless and a habit. Now you get a chronic group of complainers in your company or your team that will sabotage it.
John, you helped a lot of leaders today. Thank you so much. You're speaking something like, 13 days in a row for the next 2 weeks or something? Crazy.
Yes. I'm doing a big real estate conference, then going to State Farm in Nevada, then Arkansas football, Clemson football. Then I go to school districts the following week, like 5 school districts in a row throughout Texas, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, come back and a few other events. It's going to be a crazy couple of weeks.
Well, and you were really generous with your time with us. You've encouraged a lot of people. There's going to be people who want to get your books, jump on your website. Where can they find you online?
They can just go to johngordon.com. That's Jon Gordon.com. Twitter, JonGordon11. Same thing with Instagram and the others.
Thank you. Thanks for a breath of fresh air, John. We really appreciate you.
Thanks, Carey. I appreciate it.
Well, I hope you found that helpful. If you want more information, you can find all the messages of this series at connexuschurch.com/watch and just select On the Neck of Kings. You can also listen, of course, right on this podcast. Just scroll up or down in your feed. And we would love to see you Sunday mornings, 9 and 10:30 at our locations in Barrie, Midland, and Aurelia. We also broadcast live online and all week on demand. You can find all of that, including all the details, at connexuschurch.com. Thanks so much for listening.